Good evening, and welcome to the First Baptist Church of Bedford. I'm Pastor Greg Sackle, and I am delighted to once again welcome the Calliope Reed Quintet to our church for this benefit concert for the Mystic River Watershed Association. They've been here before. We're happy to have them again, and if this is going to be a really interesting concert, a really fascinating concert of a lot of new music, and enjoy and welcome.
Thank you. We are the Kalliope Reed Quintet. My name is Celine, and I'm the clarinetist. I'm gonna...
Microphone.
Oh, the microphone. This one?
Yes.
Hello. This is for the live stream for the people at home. So hello, people at home. We have a great program for you today. All of the pieces are inspired by nature and the natural world around us, which works perfectly for this time of year because we just had Earth Day, we just had Arbor Day. Today we had a lovely April shower. And we also have a world premiere for you today. You'll hear from the composer who is in the house with us later on in the program. You'll also be hearing from the Mystic River Watershed Association later on in the program as well. But for now, you're hearing from me, and I'm going to tell you about our first piece on the program, which is called Thaw by Becky Turrow. We are playing the first movement and the third movement, and the great thing about this piece is that there's such a great story behind it. Show of hands, who has been to Acadia National Park? Wow, most of you. Cool. So if you've been to Acadia National Park, you have been to Cadillac Mountain. So each movement is inspired by a specific place in Acadia National Park. The first movement is inspired by Cadillac Mountain, and the composer went on a trip to Acadia National Park. And when they got there, they were with their partner. When they got there, there was an enormous snowstorm, and it just blanketed the entire environment in tons of snow, including Cadillac Mountain. So if you can picture Cadillac Mountain covered in snow, if you haven't been, picture a huge mountain covered in snow. And being from New England, we're pretty familiar with this concept of snow blanketing everything around us, and there's a sort of peacefulness and a quiet that comes with that, and it can get a little desolate out in the natural world. So setting the scene, that is what the first movement is portraying. The composer, during their stay at Acadia National Park, kind of toward the end, the snow started to melt because it got a little warmer, the sun came out. So in the last movement that we're playing, you're going to hear sort of some musical motifs that sound a little bit like running water, maybe like a little river that's been formed by the snow melt. And it's called Kaleidoscope Cove. And so Acadia sits on the coast. So along the outside of Acadia, there are these tiny little coves, and they're all pretty rocky. And the ocean waves kind of come in and slam against the rocks, and it creates an explosion of ocean mist, and it's really quite beautiful. And Kaleidoscope Cove specifically is named for the colors in the sky that you see during the sunrise. And so this piece kind of chronologically moves from a frozen environment to a melted, watery environment, kind of like we experience today, and you'll be hearing some ocean waves crashing. And are we ready? Okay, so with that, please enjoy Becky Turrow's Thaw.
Before our next piece, we'd like to welcome up Shelley from the Mystic River Watershed Association for some words.
Hi, my name is Shelley.
Oh, sorry about the rope.
Hi, my name is Shelley Liebertrue. I work at the Mystic River Watershed Association. We are an organization that works to protect and restore the Mystic River Watershed, in which we are right now in Medford. So it's 21 communities that goes from Reading all the way down to Boston Harbor. And we do protect clean water, we restore parks and paths, we restore habitat, and I think just super excited and thankful for you all for this beautiful music that connects nature and music. I think especially now during these times, nature is a huge balm, as is music to our souls. So I really appreciate you recognizing the Mystic River, and we recognize you as well and appreciate everything that you're doing. So thank you.
For our next piece, we'll be playing a piece by Nubia Molina Jaime Don Juan. She is a Mexican composer from Sonora. We've actually played a lot of her music. She writes really well for reed instruments in particular. And yeah, I don't have too much more to say. We're really excited to play this piece. We did commission it a couple years ago. And the quote on which it is inspired goes as follows. "The last drop of water bounces between the different corners of this magical and strange world, bringing joy and prosperity to those most in need. The last drop is music."
So it is my distinct pleasure to introduce the composer of our next piece, which will be a world premiere. And that composer is named Youngfan Shu. Thank you so much for being here today. Youngfan Shu is a Boston-based award-winning composer, and amongst her many accolades include the New Juilliard Ensemble Composition Competition, also winning the Society for New Music's Israel Pellman Award, the first prize of the 2020 Houseman Quartet Quarantine Composition Competition, and the 2023 Boston New Music Initiative Commission Competition. Youngfan will come up to talk to you a little bit more about her piece, and we would also like to thank the Boston Bodun Society for making this commission possible.
Thank you all so much for coming tonight. It's my great pleasure to be here. And before I start talking anything about my music, I just want to give thanks to the Kalliope Reed Quintet for this amazing opportunity and for working very closely with me. We workshopped the piece together. It was amazing collaboration. Everyone's being very supportive and inspiring. So the next piece, titled Our World Handbook, I take a lot of inspiration from natural world and environments. And I'm so excited that this piece is also dedicated to Earth Day 2025. The piece has 4 movements. The first movement, titled Ocean Currents, you're going to hear a lot of wavy sound, like the ocean waves, and also some seagull calls in the air, a lot of complicated and wavy texture. The second movement, Forest Canopy, is very grounded. You're going to hear a repeated gesture throughout the whole movement. And then the third movement, Polar Wings, which is the one I found most interesting, you're going to hear a lot of air sound instead of pitches, but pure air to imitate the wind. And the last movement, Urban Ecosystem. I really envisioned New York City when I was writing this. Lots of traffic and honking and people yelling at each other. Also, maybe you're going to hear some influence, like a jazz chord from coming out of a jazz club. So yeah, again, thanks to the Calliope musicians, and thank you for being here. Hope you enjoy our World Handbook.
Okay, we needed to swap anyway. Appreciate it. Thank you all so much. We'll be back after about a 10-minute intermission. Welcome back, and thank you to everyone listening from home. Our last piece of the program today is by fellow oboist Alyssa Morris, who teaches oboe and music theory at Kansas State University, in addition to composing, of course. So this piece, Eyes to See Them, Lips to Tell, is based on the Anglican hymn, which is entitled All Things Bright and Beautiful. And the text of the hymn expresses gratitude for all of God's beautiful creations. And Alyssa Morris took inspiration from that and wrote a 5-movement work where each movement of the piece is based on a different endangered animal, endangered species. So just to share with you the first stanza of the hymn, it begins, all things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all things wise and wonderful, the Lord God made them all. So our movements are named after the Malayan tiger, the blue whale, our creature great, the axolotl, our creature small, the Queen Alexandra's bird-winged butterfly, and the Mexican wolf. So we hope you enjoy. The earth loves the rain, the instruments not so much.
Yeah, humidity affects wood instruments a lot. Today is exceptionally humid. Thank you for coming. If you want to come up and talk to us, we're going to be packing up here, so feel free to come up, ask questions, say hello. And thank you so much for coming. Thank you to the Mystic River Watershed Association, and yeah.
And the First Baptist Church of
And the First Baptist Church, and Pastor Greg and Steve doing the live streaming. Did we already thank? We already thanked
Yeah,
us. Okay.
Thank you.